YNW Bortlen finally shattered in court, his voice trembling as he exposed every chilling secret about Melly. Pulled that trigger.
I will accept your no contest pleas as to each. I'm going to find a factual basis to support each based upon my review of each electronic probable cause affidavit as well as your stipulation of court here today.
This man went from writing for his brother to laying it all out for prosecutors, even pointing out exactly where Melly was sitting when those YNW Bortlen officially locked in a plea deal on September 9th, 2025, and trust me, this move is flipping the whole meaning of loyalty. Cortland YNW Bortlen. Henry was staring down the cold reality of 5 life sentences. But instead of going down swinging, he took what many are calling the smart way, striking a deal that's got people refusing to even say his government name. Now, here's how it all went down in that tense Broward County courtroom. Judge Martinez fine laid out the terms. No sugarcoating, no mercy. Bortlen had to plead no contest to 6 heavy charges. 2 counts of accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, witness tampering, conspiracy to tamper with a witness, directing criminal gang activity, and unlawful use of a two-way communication device. In return, those 2 first-degree murder counts, the ones that could have buried him for life or sent him straight to death row, were wiped off the table.
It's my understanding that you want to resolve both cases today. Is that correct? And that resolution is the agreement you reached with the state, in terms of which are as follows. Number 1, in the 19 case, you were going to plead no contest to both counts of accessory after the fact. In the 23 case, you're going to plead no contest to all 4 counts as charged. In exchange for that, the state is going to null process, that is, drop the 2 first-degree murder counts. I'm going to adjudicate you guilty. Yes.
The deal YNW Bortlen reached with the state came with crystal clear terms, and every word of it hit like a gavel strike. Number 1. In the 2019 case, he's pleading no contest to both counts of accessory after the fact. Number 2. In the 2023 case, he's doing the same, no contest to all 4 counts as charged. In exchange, the state agreed to null pros, meaning they dropped the 2 first-degree murder charges, the ones that could have buried him for life. The judge looked him straight in the eye. "I'm going to adjudicate you guilty." "Yes, sir," Bortlen replied, his voice steady, but the room felt anything but calm. Now here's where everything explodes. The reason everyone's losing their minds. The proffer. That single word means Bortlen must now give a sworn statement about what really went down on October 26, 2018, the night YNW Sackchaser and YNW Juvie were killed. His lawyer, Joseph Nascimento, is doing damage control, telling reporters that Cortland pled no contest today. He hasn't admitted anything. But the streets aren't buying it. They know exactly what this means. And here's where things get even hotter. The victim's family's attorney, John M. Phillips, jumped on social media, confirming that Bortlen was talking. He warned that this proffer might be what finally seals Melly's fate when his retrial hits in January 2027. Phillips didn't waste time either, filing to depose Bortlen within 30 days for civil suits, citing safety concerns. And when lawyers start throwing that phrase around, you already know things are about to get dangerous. So, what's inside this proffer that's got everyone on edge? Prosecutors believe Bortlen will confirm that Melly was sitting in the rear left seat, right behind the driver, when those fatal shots were fired. That statement alone would obliterate Melly's defense, which claims he wasn't even in the car, that it was all a drive-by from a rival crew. But forensics say otherwise. The most damning evidence came from New Era Recording Studio in Fort Lauderdale. Security footage from 3:28 to 3:30 a.m. on October 26, 2018, showed all 4 members, Melly, Bortlen, Sackchaser, and Juvie, leaving the studio together and piling into Bortlen's black 2017 Jeep Compass. That footage alone shredded the drive-by theory. You see Bortlen walking up first, unlocking the Jeep, sliding into the driver's seat. Melly slips into that rear left seat. Sackchaser takes the front passenger side. Juvie climbs in behind him. No tension, no paranoia, just 4 friends leaving after a studio session, unaware that only 2 of them would make it back alive. When prosecutors rolled that footage during opening statements in Melly's 2023 trial, you could see it. The defense table froze. But that was just the start. Crime scene investigators testified about what Bortlen drove to Memorial Regional Hospital at 5:28 a.m., the same Jeep, riddled with 10 bullet holes on the passenger side. But here's the twist. The trajectory of those bullets proved they came from inside the vehicle, specifically from the rear left seat, where Melly was sitting. A single .40 caliber casing was found on the floorboard behind the driver. None outside. Blood spatter analysis told the same story. Close-range execution, not a drive-by. Gunshot residue tests lit up Melly's clothing, and every expert pointed to one conclusion. This was an inside job. The medical examiner's testimony sealed it even tighter. Sackchaser was shot in the chest and jaw, from just 1 to 2 feet away. Juvie was hit in the head and arm, at nearly the same distance. These weren't shots from a rival car, they came from someone sitting right beside them. And that's what makes this case so chilling.
In terms that you discussed previously, is there anything different?
No, Your Honor, that has changed correctly reflected on the forms.
So the preforms to me look like on the 19th case as to the 2 counts of accessory after the fact, as well as to all 4 counts in the 23 case. These are going to be adjudications, 10 years Florida State Prison, followed by, that's a 6 years probation.
That's correct.
6 years probation. All counts will run concurrently, all sentences run concurrently with one another.
As Bortlen's Jeep from the recording studio to the crime scene and finally to the hospital, there wasn't a single disconnection to suggest Melly ever stepped out of that vehicle. Then came his search history, and it was damning. Right after the shooting, Melly was Googling drive-by shooting news, trying to see if the fake story they'd spun was making headlines. But the real punch came from his Instagram messages. When someone asked about the deaths of Sackchaser and Juvie, Melly coldly replied, SH. Prosecutors said that one-letter answer said everything, a silent confession in plain sight. Still, the most bone-chilling evidence came from a video on Melly's phone, recorded barely a month after the murders. In it, his voice cuts through the static. There's no regrets for the stuff that I did for that man to die. Both of them. Those words echoed through the courtroom like a ghost that refused to rest. The prosecution wasn't done. They revealed how Bortlen and Melly tried to clean up the mess, literally. After the shooting, Bortlen drove around for over an hour with the bodies still in the Jeep, desperately trying to build a timeline that would make their drive-by cover story look real. By the time he finally pulled up at Memorial Regional Hospital, witnesses described him as eerily calm. One even said he was snacking during the drive, with 2 dead men in the backseat. When detectives swept the supposed drive-by location in Miramar, they found nothing. No shell casings, no tire tracks, no blood, not even a hint of a firefight. The only casings they did find were off the side of the road, buried near a patch of grass, a quiet clue pointing to what really happened.
So this resting angle in this seat, you have the projectile coming in, exiting through the top of the skull, and then continuing through the windshield. Christopher Thomas was already deceased when these rounds were coming into the back of the vehicle because Christopher Thomas was what we would call crumbling. He was starting to fall, if you will. On top of that, I know that he was already deceased because the back of his back, essentially, the rounds that are in his back, have no blood in them. My determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting. The shooter is at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in.
The elaborate scene that Bortlen and Melly allegedly tried to stage collapsed under the weight of evidence. Investigators described the proof as overwhelming, and with Bortlen's upcoming proffer, analysts said Melly's defense could soon be on the edge of collapse. The mix of surveillance footage and forensic data had already built what prosecutors called an airtight case, one that might only tighten further once Bortlen's sworn account is filed. It's being portrayed as one of hip-hop's most shocking moments of betrayal, the kind that could splinter the YNW legacy forever. But to understand why this cuts so deep, you have to know the bond that's now in ruins. Bortlen and Melly weren't just collaborators. They were childhood friends who grew up together in Gifford, Florida. around 2013 to 2014. Both came from rough beginnings, absent fathers, single mothers, and constant exposure to street violence. Out of that struggle, they created the YNW Collective, building it from the ground up. Tattoos reading YNW for life and the mantra YNW4L filled their music and social media feeds. Bortlen handled the details, driving, scheduling, studio work, while Melly's melodic flow and unpredictable energy drew national attention. Their joint signing with Quality Control Music in 2017 seemed to seal their rise. Even after the tragedy of October 26, 2018, Bortlen reportedly held to the drive-by story, cleaning the vehicle and sticking to the same account under questioning. Through arrests and hearings, the two exchanged letters and calls. Melly's family treated Bortlen like kin. But loyalty, people say, has limits. When the weight of 5 life sentences looms overhead, even the tightest bond can fracture. The community labeled it the ultimate betrayal. Social media compared it to other infamous moments where cooperation in court shattered careers. Bortlen's plea, entered just a day before his trial was due to start, sent shockwaves online. DJ academics questioned the sudden change, posting about how Bortlen stayed silent for years before finally taking a deal. After more than 14 hours of deliberation spread over 3 tense days, the jury reached a deadlock. 9 members in favor of manslaughter, 3 holding out, unable to agree on the first-degree murder charge the prosecution was pushing for. Despite the judge issuing an Allen charge to encourage unanimity, the panel remained divided. On July 22, 2023, a mistrial was officially declared. The defense maintained that the retrial was initially set for September 2025, but subsequent appeals delayed it once again, now expected to begin in January 2027. By then, YNW Melly will have spent over 8 years behind bars without a conviction, sparking widespread debate over his constitutional right to a speedy trial. If convicted in the retrial, Melly faces only 2 outcomes: life in prison without parole or the death penalty. Under Florida's 2023 death penalty statute, only an 8-4 jury vote is required for an execution recommendation, the lowest threshold in the country. Additional charges tied to gang activity and witness tampering could tack on multiple life sentences. Prosecutors are expected to argue aggravating factors such as premeditation, gang motivation, and the attempted cover-up. But there are mitigating circumstances, too. Melly was only 19 years old when the killings occurred, had no prior murder convictions, and remains supported by a close-knit family network. If the jury lands on a lesser charge like manslaughter, the rapper could be looking at up to 30 years instead of life or death. Now, with Bortlen's proffer potentially adding the missing testimony that could place Melly at the scene, the retrial looms as his most dangerous legal battle yet. The brotherhood that once seemed indestructible may now become the very thing that seals his fate, a harsh reminder that in both the streets and the courtroom, loyalty has limits when life sentences are at stake. But to truly understand this fall from grace, we have to go back to Cortland Malik Henry, better known as YNW Bortlen. His story stretches far beyond the shadow of this case. Born on January 24, 1999, in Gifford, Florida, Bortlen came up in one of the most unforgiving corners of the state, a small, low-income community where poverty, gang influence, and survival instincts were everyday realities. Raised by a single mother, with his father largely absent, his childhood was defined by struggle and street violence. In a rare 2020 interview, he recalled how his father's visits often came with New Orleans rapper Bee Gees music playing in the background, planting the early seeds of his love for Southern hip-hop. Influences like Future, Lil Wayne, Boozy Badass, Gucci Mane, and Young Scooter became the backbone of his musical identity. By the time he was in high school, Bortlen had lost interest in academics entirely. He dropped out of Vero Beach High School to pursue music full-time, teaching himself Pro Tools and beatmaking at just 15 years old. He began recording and engineering for his cousin Jay Green and his close friend, the soon-to-be breakout artist YNW Melly. When Melly heard Bortlen's freestyle,
The yellow and orange markers are there to help depict items of evidence that can't necessarily be seen as they are being covered by the shrubs.
Can you describe what we're looking at in this photo here with photo marker number 1?
Yes. The shell casing.
This completely undermined the staging that Bortlen and Melly had tried to.
That moment went instantly viral, critics labeling it as a smirk at betrayal, while his supporters called it relief after surviving the system. Either way, the optics were disastrous, amplifying the narrative that he had escaped while Melly still faced death row. Interestingly, Bortlen's beef history is nearly non-existent. Between 2014 and 2017, his posts showed vague disdain for sneak dissing, but he never targeted other artists directly. More recently, 6ix9ine mocked him online, joking that YNW Melly is cooked after the plea deal, though Bortlen, still incarcerated, couldn't respond. The only real conflict tied to his name comes from within YNW itself, as Melly's 2023 defense team subtly implied that Bortlen was the mastermind driver who staged the entire aftermath. Beyond, he pushed him to take rapping seriously. By 2016, Bortlen was no longer just a behind-the-scenes engineer. He was an official member of the YNW collective, helping shape the group's sound, a mix of melodic trap